early in the beginning, your discovery of Zappa is really the first thing, which is kind of incredible.
Well, he walked into a club that I was playing in with a band and saw me playing for about 40 minutes and got my name and number. And 6 months later, he auditioned me, flew me out to his house in the Hollywood Hills, and my life was utterly changed.
Playing with him, clearly at that time, there was not a lot of players like him, and there still isn't. I mean, it puts an imprint on your DNA. Do you feel it's really affected your style? Because I hear, like, anybody who's ever played with Zappa, I feel like afterwards, the first few albums kind of feel like it has that sound, like an influence.
Yeah, he influenced the first couple of records, not my playing so much as my writing a little bit. The first couple of records, Lone Rhino, Twang Bar King, my solo records, I thought, well, I like the idea of putting humor in music.
Right.
And maybe I went a little overboard with it in a Zappa-esque way. But after that, I joined King Crimson and all the humor evaporated.
You beat me to the punch in that one. Well, I do feel like Keneally and Steve Vai, like all the first albums are very, very creative. Like there are no bounds. Like for a new artist with a new album, they're just out there. And that's something. Your first album was very creative, also like that.
Well, you have years and years of ideas and things you've been working up. I started playing guitar, taught myself at 16 just to be a songwriter, not to be a guitar player. And so, let's see, 30 years later, when I was recording the Lone Rhino, I mean, at age 30, 14 years later, by then I had a sufficient backlog of things I wanted to express.
Songwriting for you at this point, is it a challenge? Is it just something that just pours out of you? Like, what are you doing with your songwriting now? I mean, because you've been with so many different artists.
It's both. This is my 25th solo record, plus I made a bunch of records with the Bears and King Crimson and other things like that. So it's still challenging, but I've gotten better and better at it. And I used to really struggle with lyric writing. That was the hardest thing to do in those 33 years with King Crimson, for example. But that's not true anymore. I invented something called Flux, 7 years ago, where I just put in songs, and the songs were how much ever I had. If it's a verse and a chorus, you're done. If you've said everything, you're done. And in doing it that way, it taught me how to write quickly. I wrote hundreds of things to put in that it was an app, of course. And that app has hundreds of things in it. So I just moved from one thing pretty quickly, and, I didn't belabor it, didn't think about it too much. Whereas when I was earlier in my writing career, lyrics were harder for me. Now the whole process is opened up.
Well, do you feel obviously lyrics when you were in a band with like Fripp and everybody else that was more focused, more serious, more like you feel like you had more eyes on you to be than just being like you wanted to be part of a community writing?
Well, yes, the solo records are just me being me. But the King Crimson records, you're writing, you're actually talking for another group of people. And so you want to be careful what you say, what the subject matter is, not too personal, not too, you don't want to embarrass Tony Levin or anyone else for that matter. But they always supported me. And so I always tried to rise to that level. It's a funny thing being a lyricist in King Crimson. I never get credit for it. If you go to any lyric site, you'll never see these lyrics, Elephant Talk or Walking on Air or Dinosaur, or any of those, never credited to me. They're always credited to the band. But the truth of the matter is I spent way more time on that than I did the music. The music, I figured out how to do the tough stuff, and wrote with it and adjusted my sights to that. But I would spend hundreds of hours on the lyrics, and it's a shame. In the first King Crimson, they had a lyricist, Pete Sinfield, and he did get credited, but I never have. That's one of my beefs. People just go to all the lyric sites and say, hey, put Adrian's name on the lyrics. It's a lyric site.
And you were the only one that really, besides the original lyricist, that wrote your own lyrics for Crimson. Yeah,
33 years. Every song I wrote the melodies and all the lyrics to any Crimson song from Discipline on. Wow. Through the rest of the new albums. Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be a beef. I would have a problem with that too.